General Hospital spoilers tease that Lois Cerullo, Rena Sofer, and Brooklyn Quartermain, Amanda Seton, have been keeping a whopper of a secret from their loved ones. When the truth comes out, will Lois be forced to leave Port Charles, New York due to her deception? There are many fans who would love to see the raven-haired beauty back in her role as Quinn Forrester on The Bold and the Beautiful, and here's what they are speculating about at the moment. General Hospital spoilers. Lois Cerullo's epic secret. Lois Cerullo and Brooklyn Quartermain, plus half of PC, are living in the Quartermain mansion. Lois has made a name for herself at Deception Cosmetics and recently discovered that her thick Brooklyn accent is nothing to be ashamed of. Not sure why the writers went there. One of the people living on the grounds is Gio Palmieri, Giovanni Palminteri. The talented violinist was raised in Bensonhurst, like Lois and BLQ, and is now ensconced among the Qs. This is not a coincidence, with Lois often saying he's family. GH spoilers. Lois and her family. What fans suspect is that Lois is literally correct, that Gio is her grandson. The rumor is that he is the baby Brooklyn gave up for adoption as a teenager, with the father being Dante Falconeri, Dominic Zamprogna. This secret is surfacing because Brooklyn can't get pregnant, and she's wondered aloud if it has something to do with her teen pregnancy, which no one except Lois knows about. GH spoilers. Is Gio Palmieri Dante Falconeri's love child? As the story seems to be going, Brooklyn and Dante were together once at summer camp. The resultant pregnancy was covered up and Lois facilitated the adoption. But we predict that Lois went a step further and kept the baby close to the family without telling BLQ. If this plot goes the way it looks like it will, the truth will burn many people and Lois will be the bad guy. Was Dan robbed of knowing his firstborn son? If this is the case, his mother Olivia Falconeri, Lisa Lo Cicero, will turn on Lois as well. Tell us, GH fans, how do you see this plot turning out? A symphony of secrets. Port Charles always had a way of wrapping people in a whirlwind of chaos and intrigue, and Lois Cerullo was no stranger to either. Stepping into the Quartermain mansion once again felt surreal, like walking back into an opera where the overture never ended. The grandeur, the history, the drama, it all seemed untouched by time, yet brimming with new tensions. Lois's Brooklyn accent, once a source of insecurity, now cut through the air like a blade. She was determined not to let anyone forget where she came from, especially herself. But beneath her confident exterior, Lois harbored a secret so monumental it could shatter the very foundations of the Quartermain estate and her life. Chapter 1. The Maestro in the Mansion. Gio Palmieri's violin sang through the halls of the Quartermain mansion, a haunting melody that could bring even the most stoic to tears. His presence felt oddly poetic to Lois. She watched from the grand staircase as the young musician's bow glided effortlessly over the strings. His dark, wavy hair and intense gaze were reminiscent of someone she once knew, someone she had tried to forget. Doesn't he remind you of someone? Olivia Falconeri's voice broke Lois' reverie. Olivia, ever the firecracker, leaned against the doorway, her eyes narrowing suspiciously. Sure, Liv, Lois said with a nervous laugh. Every kid with a violin reminds me of Itzhak Perlman. But Olivia wasn't buying it. Her instincts were sharp, honed by years of navigating the treacherous waters of Port Charles. Something about Gio tugged at her, but she couldn't quite put her finger on it. Chapter 2. A Ghost from Bensonhurst. Brooklyn Quartermain, or BLQ as she preferred, had spent the morning avoiding eye contact with Gio. The resemblance to her teenage summer love was undeniable. Every time she saw him, her stomach churned with a mix of guilt and longing for what could have been. Brooklyn had thought she'd buried her past deep enough that it would never resurface. Her teenage pregnancy was a chapter of her life she had vowed never to reopen, and yet here was Gio, an echo of a secret that refused to stay buried. Ma, you've got that look, BLQ said, confronting Lois later in the privacy of the garden. What look? Lois feigned innocence, plucking a stray leaf from a nearby bush. The one where you're about to explode because you're hiding something big, BLQ pressed. What's going on with Geo? Lois hesitated. Her heart raced. How could she tell her daughter that the young man playing the violin in their living room wasn't just a talented musician from Bensonhurst, but her own grandson? Chapter 3. The Truth Unveiled. The revelation came not in the privacy Lois had hoped for, but in the grand dining room during a family dinner. Geo, in an attempt to lighten the mood, recounted a story from his childhood. His words, seemingly harmless, painted a vivid picture of a Bensonhurst upbringing that mirrored Lois's own tales of family and tradition. Brooke Lynn froze mid-bite. "Wait a second," she said, her voice shaking. "That story, I've heard it before. From you, Ma." Lois's heart sank. She had hoped to control the narrative, but now it was unraveling in real time. All eyes turned to her, and she felt the weight of their gazes. "It's true," Lois finally admitted, her voice trembling. "Geo isn't just a family friend. He's your son, Brooke Lynn." The room erupted in chaos. Voices overlapped as accusations flew. Dante Falconeri, seated at the far end of the table, stared at Lois in stunned silence before finally standing. "You knew." Dante's voice was barely above a whisper, but the hurt was palpable. "You knew all this time, and you didn't tell me." "I was trying to protect everyone." Lois defended herself, tears streaming down her face. "I thought I was doing what was best for you and Brooke Lynn." Chapter 4. Fallout. The days following the revelation were a blur. Olivia Falconeri was livid, her fiery temper directed squarely at Lois. "How could you keep my grandson from me?" she demanded, her voice cracking with emotion. "You had no right." Brooke Lynn, meanwhile, vacillated between anger and heartbreak. She avoided Geo altogether, unsure how to approach the young man who was suddenly more than just a familiar face. For Geo, the news was earth-shattering. The family he thought he knew was not the family he had. The violin, once a source of solace, now felt like an instrument of betrayal. Chapter 5. The Exile. Lois knew she couldn't stay. The Quartermain mansion, once a haven, had become a prison of judgment and resentment. Brooke Lynn refused to speak to her, and Dante's cold silence was unbearable. Even Olivia, her oldest friend, had turned her back. Packing her bags, Lois prepared to return to Bensonhurst. The thought of leaving Port Charles broke her heart, but she knew it was the only way to give her family the space they needed to heal. "I'm sorry," Lois whispered to Brooke Lynn as she stood by the front door. "I only ever wanted to protect you." Brooke Lynn didn't respond, her eyes fixed on the floor. As Lois walked away, the strains of Geo's violin followed her, a bittersweet reminder of the family she had tried, and failed, to keep together. Chapter 6. Healing and Redemption. Back in Bensonhurst, Lois found solace in familiar surroundings. She spent her days reflecting on her choices, wondering if there was a way to mend the fractures in her family. Meanwhile, in Port Charles, the Quartermains grappled with their new reality. Geo, despite his initial shock, began forging a relationship with Brooke Lynn and Dante. The road to reconciliation was long, but it was paved with moments of understanding and forgiveness. For Lois, redemption came in small, unexpected ways. A letter from Geo, filled with gratitude and hope, reminded her that even the deepest wounds could heal with time. And though she remained in Bensonhurst, Lois knew that her story with the Quartermains was far from over.